Welcome to the Asking Autistic podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Brains and Spoons.
And I am Rebecca Rivera Bonbon.
And today we are joined by our friend, Alex. Alex, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am an LCSW in private practice here. Actually, I'm in a group private practice here in Moline, Illinois, and I do therapy all day long. I also have ADHD, but I specialize in working with ADHD, autism, post-traumatic stress, somatoform disorders, and anxiety disorders. That's kind of my whole wheelhouse. That's the big thing that I work with. And I also do a little content creation on the side, just because I like to tell people stuff.
We love to see it.
Alex is very popular on Neurodivergent TikTok. That is how we have gotten to know him. And you also talk a lot about the fact that you are a parent and partner to autistic folks as well.
Well, you betcha. Yep, my wife is autistic, and my daughter has been diagnosed with both ADHD and autism. So we have a great time in our house. It's a lot of fun. Then there's just me who's just got like plain old low support ADHD. So I mean, not saying that every now and then my brain doesn't just decide to be real dumb and rude and awful to me, but most of the time I'm just kind of loving and taking care of my humans.
I love that you said low support ADHD, because I think that with disorders like ADHD, people forget that it too does exist on somewhat of a spectrum.
It's on the ADA website. It's on the ADHD Protection as a Disability. So yes, people with ADHD can go all the way from low support all the way through high support. But people don't seem to realize that because everybody thinks it's still a disorder of childhood and mainly affects little boys. I mean, autism's not that much different, except now they're realizing, like, oh my gosh, women can get it too.
Yeah, because my former roommate had ADHD, but she was actually on the higher support need end of ADHD. And I think that those of us who are diagnosed can sometimes have a little bit of internalized ableism with ourselves, where we don't accept that we have high support needs, or we can also be laterally ableist towards others with ADHD who have higher support needs, because it's like, well, I have ADHD and that's not a problem for me. Okay, but you're right. That's not a problem for you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, oh gosh, what's the gentleman's name? The older gentleman who does ADHD content on TikTok. Blanking on his name. He's also an
Dr. Yeah, I can't think of the name. Well,
yeah, we chat periodically. I feel terrible now, but one of the things he says is, you've met one person with ADHD. You've met one person with ADHD. The way that my ADHD affects me is going to be completely different than the way that somebody else's ADHD affects them, because we're not just looking at how it is responding to you neurologically. We're also looking at, what has your environment been like? What is your history like? What are the coping tools that you've learned and developed? What are the skills that have been acquired? What are the things that you have learned about yourself? And how much psychoeducation do you have on what's going on with you? And in that, what are the accommodations and abilities that you can and can't engage with? Because a lot of times we'll try to push and push and push towards something that we have no interest in, but we think that we're supposed to do real good. The big trick, I think, with any sort of neurodivergence is the pursuit of finding the thing that makes you go. Because if you're not loving it and you're not passionate about it and you don't feel some sort of ownership of it, you're not going to do it for the rest of your life. I mean, that's why I love doing this. I love doing therapy, because I really believe that every single person can get to a point where they're the best functioning version of themselves, but that also requires a lot of full frontal honesty and just being really uncomfortable with yourself for a good chunk of time until you figure out what you can and can't do. Like Lindsey, you probably wouldn't want to work in an auto shop because it's hella loud and it's covered in grease, and you would be
I'm getting uncomfortable thinking about it.
The sensory issues that you experience on a day-to-day basis would basically cause you to go into shutdown within the first 20 minutes that you're in a shop. However, I happen to know that you are incredible with empathy and that you are wonderful with working with individuals with special needs. And that's been a niche of yours for a long time, right?
Yeah, I've worked in special education and disability support services for most of my life. Yeah.
Right. And you're a freaking baller at it because you found the thing that makes you go.
So one of the things that Alex is kind of known for and is very popular for, I would say, in your TikTok videos is the coping techniques that you give out to people, and the information that is useful on a daily basis or a frequent basis.
Well, and it's weird that you say that, because I actually don't tend to give out generalist coping skills, because I never want anybody to try a tool and then have it not work for them. and then feel like a failure. But I do talk about a lot of
Really
psychoeducation.
considerate.
Well, yeah, I'm actually kind of good at my job.
Toot that horn.
Kind of famous, actually. I get people from all over the world contacting me for consultations. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
I
whatever.
believe it.
Yeah,
So,
it's all good.
well, there are things that you've talked about that I found really helpful as an autistic person. One of them was, I think, some techniques over time, or just things that you've talked about with family members or clients about, like, meltdowns was a big one.
Yeah, because de-shaming meltdowns is a big deal.
Yes.
Because there's all that like I should be able to control myself, blah 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 blah, all this garbage. And you know what? Here's the thing: is if you actually understand the neurology of an autistic brain, there's not a choice. Your brain is wired to go right from emotion, which is not even translated first as emotion, it's translated first as a physical sensation. And then after it goes to the motor cortex, then you get to experience it as an emotion. But first, you get it as a physical sensation. Can you imagine if every time somebody had to have a conversation with somebody, anybody, it had to be translated through 3 different Google translators of language, and they were expected to understand at least 2 of those without actually having a base understanding of those, while they were also, I don't know, getting hit with a cactus? How do you think that they would be doing that day?
Yeah.
Wow.
That would
Both
be
of you are
impossible to deal
Sorry,
with.
like my brain is like just still caught up on the idea that meltdowns are not a choice. Like, even though like I know that, like I know that as an autistic person, but at the same time, like
I know hundreds of autistic people. Some of them are my friends, some of them are my loved ones, some of them are clients, some of them are people that I know on the internet. And one thing that I think every single one of my autistic humans has in common is that they would honestly rather roll around naked in fiberglass than draw attention to themselves for something that they can't control and that is not natural.
oh my god, yes.
Yeah. That is so true. And it's making me starting to feel emotional, because that is the amount of shame that goes along with meltdowns for autistic people, and especially adults and those of us who are, in the workplace, in public, and we start to have this stuff happen. And I've shared with folks that, like, that is why I go to my car. Like, when I start to feel overwhelmed and sensory stuff, and that rage starts building up, like, that is what Riki and I have talked about, is that our meltdowns come out as rage, uncontrollable.
And the thing is, like, it's different for every single person. It comes out as rage, it comes out as fear, it comes out as shame, because it's all coming from the negative subconscious. I mean, that's one of the things I love about using accelerated resolution therapy with my autistic clients, because it bypasses the need to sit with the trauma, with the negative experience, in order for them to process it, because it basically hacks the subconscious and the hindbrain. It completely bypasses most of the stuff. That's why for people with autism, ART is... I'm getting results that I should not be getting. Given how psychology works, given everything that we know about the way therapy works, I'm getting results with this new process that I've learned. Well, it's not new. It's been around for about 15 years. Lainey Rosenwig.
That's still relatively new in the psychology world, honestly.
The psychology world moves very slowly.
Oh, no, trust me, I know.
So this is fascinating to me, because I know that in the autistic community, we talk a lot about like things like CBT and DBT and things like that not working necessarily for us.
Well, I mean, CBT, I like CBT for problem solving and for getting to the root of things, because CBT really has a lot of like good old fashioned Socratic interview in there. So it helps to get to the point where we figure out what we need to deal with. DBT can be great for doing skills, but CBT is basically like self-gaslighting to make yourself... I mean, I understand what CBT works because you're rerouting neural pathways.
For me, DBT works when I'm managing symptoms of like my bipolar, because I've been very open about the fact that, I have not only autism and ADHD, but I also have comorbid bipolar disorder. So when I'm managing that bipolar disorder with DBT skills, it's usually when I'm not in like autism meltdown mode and I'm feeling like anxiety, like my partner's just going to suddenly wake up and realize he doesn't love me anymore. That's when I go and I'm like, you know what, maybe it's time to practice some DBT. But like if I'm in the middle of an autism meltdown, the only DBT skills that I really have that are accessible to me in that moment are the occasional like replacement behaviors for self-harm. Like that has been extremely beneficial for me.
And that actually, DBT is great for a lot of that stuff because, especially during meltdowns, there's a tendency to engage in self-harming, most commonly striking oneself around the head and shoulders.
That is my biggest struggle with
we
my autism meltdowns.
flip it and we add some EFT skills in there. We add some DBT skills in there. We learn to transfer from harming to soothing. Like havening is actually a really useful tool for an autistic individual. It's from emotional freedom technique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, emotional freedom technique. And it's essentially just sitting and very firmly rubbing.
Give yourself a hug.
My therapist makes me do that when we do EMDR.
No, they don't. What your therapist makes you do is butterfly taps.
There we go. Sorry. It's like some
different animal.
My brain is like,
like I've done like somatic like tapping and things before.
Yeah, somatic tapping comes from EFT. But yeah, the havening is the very I wish you were here so I could rub your arm so you could feel the level of pressure that needs to be applied. But it's very firm, it's very soothing. And when you are getting that urge to hit, you can even like do the arm massaging up and down, and this can be very, very tactily soothing. And again, all we're doing is we're changing drugs. You are looking for an overwhelming stimulation because that's one of the things that pulls you out of a meltdown. Just like a lot of people that I know that are autistic, like really, really strong flavors, like super sour or super sweet or super spicy, or they like really, really angry music, like Norwegian black metal calms them down. Right. Exactly.
Or ice cubes. We've both, Riki and
I do the ice cubes. I squeeze them, but for the most part, the reason I struggle to do like things like this when trying to pull myself out of a meltdown is because my meltdowns are so mixed with rage and shame.
Well, that's the thing is we work through the shame with some good therapy, and then we learn skills, and then we also learn to use those replacement skills even when we're feeling a little bit, so it becomes an automatic response. It becomes a reflex, just like hitting yourself.
To help you, yeah. Because like I don't know about other autistic people, but for me, like, I tend to be a self-harm autistic, and that self-harm usually comes from like both a desire to like get all of the rage that I'm feeling that just feels way too big for my body. Like it feels like it's way too big for my body, trying to get it out. And I'm trying to get it out in a way that doesn't hurt other people. So the target is always me. And then it's also like a punishment thing because I'm like, nope, you deserve this behavior. You deserve to be hit. You deserve this kind of thing because you're not normal. So therefore you must be punished, like that kind of idea. And I hope that talking about this is not triggering other people. I just am trying to, like
maybe the next thing is to figure out where that voice came from.
I know where it came from.
Yeah.
I know exactly where it came from. I'm working on that in therapy.
That's a childhood thing she's working at. But Riki uses ice cubes a lot.
Yes, I do.
Throws them and they break.
To watch something break.
Yeah.
Because it fulfills that destructive side of me where I'm like, it stopped. That one specifically is a good replacement behavior, not necessarily just for hitting myself, but I also tend to destroy the things I love the most. I will throw anything and break it. And
we both throw things.
You're punishing yourself by destroying the things you care about the most.
Not necessarily that when it comes to like the throwing and breaking things, it's because I need to see something shatter. I need something to be broken. It just doesn't matter what it is. I need something to break.
I've actually had clients that I've instructed to just go to like the dollar store or like Goodwill and just
get
a box of crap.
I do that. I do. It's just ice cubes are a cheaper option.
Yes. Ice cube is the...
Whipping ice cubes is a great idea. Yeah, with self-harming, we've used the grabbing ice, the holding on to ice cubes for years. Except then you have those kids that are like, oh, but if I put salt on my arm, then I rub out. No scarring. We're doing this to avoid scars, huh?
Ice cubes can be good too. Like you said, it's an extreme cold feeling that can also kind of like zap yourself into, out of it. Not always, but it does work just like the, extreme flavors, biting a lemon. But yeah, sticking your hands in ice cubes.
Yep. It's also a non-permanent way of inflicting an awful lot of physical pain on yourself all at once.
Yes.
It affects the same pain centers of the brain as cutting wood or rubbing or burning.
But yet it doesn't actually have long-lasting effects. It's just a
Right.
short-term
There's no long-term
thing.
effects.
No,
That's
not with an ice cube.
wow.
No.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's a really good alternative behavior,
I have
replacement
a
behavior.
friend who got, because it's trendy right now to do like the cold plunge things, for like fitness reasons and whatnot,
Yeah.
but they
Twan
got
loves
a
that
cold
thing. Are you
plunge.
kidding me? Have you watched Twan in his plunge?
That does not sound pleasant.
So Tuan is Warped Legacy on TikTok, and he is another ADHD autistic content creator in front of ours.
Yeah, he and I will talk on the phone periodically, which is super fun. And I just think he's
a sweetheart.
He's actually going to be finishing his degree in social work soon. Because he
Good
just found out he was
for
like
him.
a handful of credits away. So we were talking, like, dude, you should just go and find out like how many credits away you are. He's like, but I'm only 12 credits away from my master's degree. I'm like, go take them, man. That's like one semester. Go do what I do because you'd be really good at it.
I find it funny just how many autistic and ADHD people tend to go into like humanities as a field. Anything
Well, yeah, we're
that
trying
is
to figure
either
ourselves out.
yeah,
Yep.
and like some people do it from the analytical lens, whereas like then there's others like me who do it more from the creative lens rather than the analytical one. Like we try and figure ourselves out by like putting ourselves in other people's roles instead of like analyzing them from the inside out. I'm like, no, I'm gonna feel you. I'm going to be you and feel you. And then there's some who do both.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I would say, autistic folks that get into theater, that get into acting and things like that. And obviously ADHD plays a component too, but especially with autistics, that's a safe place for us to learn how to be a human. That's a way for us to, I mean, Riki and I have talked about this. A lot of our masking skills and communication skills came from theater.
Yeah, I lettered in double barred in theater in high school. Actually, when our daughter was born, one of the things that we had to work on with Val was facial expressions because there was a growing divide between Val and Evelyn when Evie was a baby. Like the kid was like all excited to see dad, and then there was the milk maker. And I said, "Well, baby, it's because you roll up. Like I don't care if you roll up on me and go, hey, sweetheart, how are you? I love you today. You're fantastic and so handsome." I know that's her. She doesn't have to make vocal intonations or expressions for me to go, she likes me. But the baby does. So we practiced facial expressions. We practiced tone. And the thing is, like, my wife is also a phenomenal singer. So we used a lot of that.
I personally never struggled with like facial expressions on that end when I was younger, but I've noticed that as I've gotten older, I struggled more with facial expressions, which is very interesting.
Well, it's screensaver mode. The more tired you are, less energy you're going to devote to unnecessary operations. And when you have, I don't know if you know this, but when you have a new child, you're tired.
You're tired all
Like
the time.
all
So
the
I get
time. I remember in grad school, I was just like standing there outside having a smoke break with my friends, and I just started like crying. And they're like, "Bro, you okay? What's going on?" Oh my God, Alex. I'm like, "I don't know, man. I'm just so tired. I don't know what's happening right now. I'm not sad or nothing. I'm just so tired. I've been sleeping like 2 hours a night for the last 3 months. I'm ragged." Yeah, like growing up, we were constantly misunderstood.
We are.
Because we don't have the words to describe what we're experiencing because we're freaking kids. And so we try to use it as we try to explain like in situations, and then that transfers over to adulthood because we also know that we don't feel things the exact same way that somebody else does. And there's that feeling of being alienated even in with people that we are very close with consistently. So we always are needing to over explain that we understand, even though we don't realize that like neurotypicals actually don't care.
No, they don't.
A lot of lip service, and we actually want to make genuine connection.
So it's like they do it as a means of like an expectation of the conversation, but they don't actually care about empathizing. When we do it, they're expecting that, but we're actually trying to like actually legitimately trying to connect and be like, hey, I've been through this. I understand. This is my experience.
Yeah, there's a social script that goes on, with a lot of things when it comes to just small talk, how was your weekend, or how are you doing?
And they
Those
don't
kinds of
care.
Things. Right. It is simply a social script that you're supposed to just give the expected answer and not go into detail.
I liken it to church. Think about the call and response. Call and response.
Oh, call and response. In Temple, they do that too.
They do. Yeah, we We do that in Temple.
Or like if you go to a high school football game and the cheerleaders are like, "We got spirit, yes we do, we got spirit. How about you?" You don't go, I'm not really feeling it today. You go, yes, we do. And you scream back because that's what you're supposed to do. Actually, psychoeducation is a huge part of what I do. It's like, I love getting teenagers. I love getting younger kids. Like, I work with 11 and up, unless they happen to be particularly exceptional or they're dealing with a very specific trauma that's in my wheelhouse. But I love doing the psychoeducation aspect because once we can identify, kiddo, you're rocking the tisms, then we can slide into, and this is what you're going to experience with normies. These are the ways to engage. I'm literally giving them a rule book, not just in how they are experiencing the world and viewing the world and feeling things differently, but also what everybody else experiences too. So they can take that and homogenize it to make their own approach to the world. And you know what? Without exception, every single one of my teenagers right now is killing it.
Hey.
Which makes me really
Great.
freaking happy. And you know what? They're all outwardly, and they're all very like upfront with their autism. They're very upfront with their ADHD. They let people know, like, yeah, man, I have autism. So sometimes I'm going to act in a way that you might not enjoy or interpret poorly. But if that happens, talk to me about it.
Having the words and the tools to be able to explain yourself to other people has made such a big change in my life. And I'm an adult who figured this out. I can imagine how much better it is to go through life, I mean, as a teenager and beyond, to
Sure.
have the terminology, to have the ways to explain this to other people.
Yeah, I mean, their brains are still very plastic at that point. So we can create these new malleabilities and these new neural pathways, and I can provide these kids with rehearsable scripts. Like, I'll actually record videos for these kids on their phone of me saying and doing something with specific inflections so they can rehearse that.
Well, yeah, having social stories and having people that you can mimic that are appropriate makes a big difference, because I
For
know
sure.
for myself, and Ricky's also talked about this, is that we based a lot of our mannerisms and like social skills as teenagers on television and movies and book characters. And so like that was like literally I did take things word for word from John Hughes movies and from Saved by the Bell and from these things. So I can look back at these moments, and it's also kind of weird to me, like, how did nobody recognize this, that I was acting out a scene from this movie?
Lindsey, I mean, this is literally what I do for a living. And I didn't really recognize my daughter's autism until she was like 10. Like, she was a tow walker. She never played with toys. She organized her toys. She did all this other stuff. And she had like one friend growing up. And yeah, it was like looking back, I'm like, oh, you dumb bastard.
Friends, but they're very surface level friendships.
Right.
I think a lot of it was just its proximity. It was, similar activities, and the fact that I got away with a lot of things because of, what people have termed pretty privilege. I was a cute enough kid that I got a lot more leeway on being weird. That doesn't mean I wasn't persistently bullied and taken advantage of in multiple different ways. That definitely happened a lot because of that kind of naivete that tends to go hand in hand with, AFAB autistics. For the Lost Girls, that's what is the name of folks who didn't realize that we were autistic until we were adults. And that is one of those things that I hear over and over again, is like with adult women who didn't have an early diagnosis, is where we got those social skills, where we got those tools and advice was from a lot of the wrong places.
Yes,
Sure.
absolutely.
Well, but you'll see that with neurotypical
Absolutely.
kids too. Like, especially in middle school, it's the worst. Like, middle schoolers all want to be like, they're all trying to act like what they perceive as adult without actually knowing
From
all the
YouTube.
things. From you,
I don't even think it's from YouTube
TV,
anymore. I think it's from like TikTok now. Like it's from
it's from all sources of media. These
Yeah,
kids are
they're
like,
mimicking what they see.
they're watching movies, they're watching TV shows, they're watching YouTube, they're watching TikTok, they're watching Instagrams, they're watching all these different things, and they're getting information from all these different sources and trying to assimilate that into something that resembles a personality other than the one that they actually have because they don't like themselves.
It's really funny. Like all middle schoolers who pretend to be adult in order to like try and fit in. I didn't realize that there was an age limit for the adult that you were supposed to be pretending to be the way that middle schoolers, even autistic ones do. Like the ones in my age were like trying to be like, Paris Hilton or like any of the girls that they saw in like The Real World or things like that, like on MTV. I was trying to be the moms from Desperate Housewives because that was the media I watched and consumed. So I was like sitting there, like I was like, quoting Edie Britt and Susan Meyer. And I was trying to be like Gabrielle Solis, but like I'm like a freaking sixth grader trying to pretend to be a 31-year-old woman.
Well, and it's also really not uncommon for AFAB autistics to become to mimic more of the mom friend because of the caregiver aspect of things, and to have a role.
It gives us a role to fill. Yes, I did that in my 20s, big time.
I'm still the mom friend.
I still have that, but I feel like it's in a much healthier place now than it was when I was in my 20s, where you get to a point where you're, especially if you are an autistic woman, is that when you feel accepted in a group, you will cling to that like immediately, no matter how unhealthy it is to achieve and keep up with. You're like, okay, I was given a role.
See, I'm now the Jewish mom friend, though. So all I do is sit there and complain about how they're not doing enough to take care of themselves. And I just try and shove food in their faces. And I'm just like, why don't you come see me anymore? Why aren't you spending time with me? And like the entire time, I'm just like, you're not eating enough. You're not taking care of yourself enough.
Would you explain monotropism for our listeners?
Monotropism is just a fancy, very exciting word that I paid a lot of money for in grad school for long-term interest. Consistent long-term interest. Like, for instance, Riki's monotropism would be sharks, right off the top of my head.
So would that be different than special interest?
It's a long-term special interest, like lifelong. Like,
then that would actually not be sharks for me. That would be Disneyland for me.
Okay.
Monotropism is basically like you are very narrow, a very narrow fixation on something.
Yeah, that would definitely be Disneyland. I'm a cringy Disney adult. It is specifically being in the parks themselves that give me a sense of safety. Like, it doesn't matter which, it's for some reason, it's particularly like Main Street, Fantasyland, and New Orleans Square that give me this odd sense of safety. And so like being in those areas, that's where I'm like, oh, that's then my long-term special interest, because that's literally how my mom used to handle like everything for me. If I was having, because we had Disney passes growing up, because we literally I've always lived like 40 minutes away from Disneyland, no more, no less. And so my mom, we had passes and we would just go all the time, especially because we had my oldest sister's kids who were infants. And so my mom would watch them while my sister was getting her bachelor's and master's degrees. And so we would just go to Disneyland all the time, and my mom would just handle literally every single bad thing that ever happened to me or good thing with Disneyland. Because we had the passes, it was affordable, so she was just like, all right, Disneyland it is.
Which is totally fine, and that doesn't need to be cringy. People have comfort foods that they eat when they're feeling bummed out. You don't ever call that cringy, kid. That's your safe place. That is one of your coping tools. That is one of the things that makes you more you. That is one of the things that makes you feel safe and comfortable and good. It is one of the ways that you engage in self-regulation. It is not cringy.
I think that, like a lot of neurodivergent people, I have a tendency to try and say the joke first before people can make fun of me for it or make me feel bad for it.
Well,
because, like,
if somebody's going to make you feel bad about something that you love, they can kick rocks.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who are kicking those rocks, and they're often aimed at me.
No, for sure. But this is why I have 3 friends, and I'm okay with that. If you shit my breakfast cereal, I'm not going to hang out with you anymore.
I think all of us, as we've talked about, are geeky and are into cosplay and different things like that. And I remember, Alex, you had a video where you said that masking was cosplay.
Cosplaying. Oh, yeah, when I was talking about, oh, golly, that was a long time ago.
It is a long one, but it was one that really stuck with me. Yeah. I think basically there are a number of folks, autistic folks and stuff, who feel like masking is lying, and that concept bothers them. And there's also like holistic neurotypical people who will be like, they'll see us having discussions about masking and they're like, you guys are just faking stuff. You're just
you're
being fake all the time.
lying, like, and they
Right.
punish us morally for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's when I usually say, I don't know, do you ever like filter your language when you're around certain groups of people? Would you show up to church in greasy jeans and a ratty t-shirt? No, you're going to put on your Sunday best. That's masking too, bud. You are presenting what you think that this person wants you to have. And
Well,
that's
that's
all
Yeah.
a
And I
masking.
very
think,
We're
interesting way
presenting
to
what
look
we
at it.
think
Yeah.
they want us to be like.
yeah, I know that for me, I do a thing that like friends of mine have called armoring, where I will dress in what looks, well, normal for me outfit. Because let's be honest, I'm a little more Miss Frizzle all the time. And, Ricky's kind of goth punk all the time. But part of that is armoring. It's wearing something
Yeah.
that will either protect me in that social setting where it's like I'll blend in, or for me, sometimes there are characters that I will channel. There are people who have characteristics that I may not feel at the moment, but I would like to. And so I will dress like Susan Death from Terry Pratchett's Discworld when I want to feel brave. And that,
I love Terry
I
Pratchett.
used to do that during my BFA program where I was really trying to mask because I was in a very unfamiliar area and I had a pixie cut at the time. And I would specifically style it to look like Jerry Hogarth in Jessica Jones, who, if you've never seen Jessica Jones,
I've
Jerry
seen
Hogarth.
Jessica Jones.
Yeah, Jerry Hogarth is is Jessica Jones' not boss, but she's a big client, and she's played by the same actress who played Trinity in The Matrix, and she kind of has this like no one with her attitude, and so like I would style myself to look like her. Something that I want to ask you about as somebody who is
Therapy-ish.
it's familiar with therapy, with psychology, and everything. Why is it that so many people see autistic women and their first reaction is anger? Because that is something that Lindsey and I have experienced being autistic women online. And it doesn't matter the gender of the person viewing us, but for so many people, men, women, or any other marginalized gender, their first reaction, emotionally speaking, to seeing autistic women talk about autism is anger. I don't understand that.
That's actually a really interesting question. I mean, there's a lot of answers for that. I think partially it starts with autism, for the most part, has been a predominantly male diagnosed thing. Also, in the last, like 5 to 6 years, I'd say, because there's so much more information out there, because people are sharing their stories, because therapists are talking about like, yeah, this is an autism thing. Like people like me, people like you, you two sharing your actual life experiences, and then dopes like me with a degree that go, well, no, this is the thing. This is a thing that happens with autism. Like, and it's not a thing that can be helped. People don't want people to have reasons to need accommodations. People don't want other people to have reasons to be special or different. People don't want people to have any sort of like leg up. They almost see it like, well, you're just milking the system. No, it's not even that. Or just the idea that they get angry because they feel like now they're like, if it actually becomes like acceptable, then they're going to have to change their own actions and behaviors. Otherwise, now they are a terrible human being. And yeah, there's some shame there. Like, I mean, we didn't know that Val was on the spectrum, and this was like well after I graduated, honestly, because they don't really talk about autism was an hour in a 6-year program.
That's
We talked more
very
about
fascinating.
ADHD and bipolar and depression and menopause. We actually talked about menopause. That's cool. But I also went to social work.
you got lucky with that one. They actually
But-
talk
Yeah.
about.
But I got a degree in social work, which is different than your degrees in psychology or counseling, because we actually look at a person as a system, not as a collection of symptoms.
Yeah.
And that's the big shift. That's a major difference between a social work mindset and a psychology mindset. Social worker goes, oh, look at this person. They got a bunch of weird shit going on in their lives. Okay, what are the things that are affecting them? What are the ways that we can change things? What can we affect and what can we accept? But that's the thing. It's like when people look at a woman with autism and they go, you're just making excuses for being different or being like extra sensitive. And it is. It's misogyny. It really is. Like, there's a lot of misogyny and there's a lot of just like blatant ableism, and people are just kind of dreadful and they don't want to change because that would mean that what they've been doing their whole lives is wrong.
It's interesting that you say that, because there is literally a man on TikTok right now who I'm about to make a video targeting and specifically because I've had enough, where he's advocating that anybody who's asking for accommodations in his classrooms is going to be denied because he thinks that they don't need them.
Except that if he does that, then he can get fired and his school gets sued by the ADA.
He believes that they are faking their disabilities, and he keeps presenting these studies that show that ADHD is being overly diagnosed and that people are faking because they understand the proper answers to give for getting an ADHD diagnosis.
As someone who does ADHD assessments, yeah, there are people that can definitely fake it, but if a therapist is actually doing their due diligence, like when I give an ADHD assessment, they're getting a Connors computer test, they're getting the bars take home. That's the Dr. Russell Barkley's lifelong assessment. They're getting an Amen because that one's actually kind of cool, and they're getting a Vanderbilt. And then I cross-reference all of them. It's very easy to tell if somebody's been lying.
Yeah, and that's a really good due diligence situation. And I think, unfortunately, there's a difference between what is actually going on and what, the media is doing clickbaity articles and stuff on, is that overwhelmingly we are seeing adults who were missed in childhood get these diagnoses now, especially women and AFAB folks, okay? Because and people of color who were overlooked or who were, just labeled bad kids. And now
they got dropped in special ed their entire lives and forgotten. I have a kid that I'm working with that's in his 20s now, and because he was dyslexic and poor and black, he got thrown into special ed at second grade. Never got any tutoring for his dyslexia. Never got any supports. Just went through special ed all the way through high school. I get a hold of this kid when he's like 20 for different reasons, and we start talking about that. I'm like, kiddo, okay. I got him hooked up with the Dyslexia Learning Center here locally, which is free, by the way.
We love a free resource
that was available when he was a child. And 3 months later, this kid's got a job making $70,000 a year.
Good for him. Yeah. We love success stories
I'm a very good therapist. This is what I do.
And that's the thing is, I wish that more people, had access to you and others like that. But what is unfortunate is that is that not everybody does have access to neuroaffirming care and
for sure.
and education. That's a huge thing. I mean, I have had multiple trainings. I was an ABA therapist, had all of these different autism specialist certifications, okay? And I didn't know that I was autistic myself. Nobody.
I didn't get my ADHD diagnosis until I was 39 and started working here at this clinic.
Wow.
And the only reason I found it out was because, and I had already been working as an ADHD specialist for 5 years.
The call was coming from inside the house.
No shit. When I started here, they're like, "Hey, Alex, since you work in Illinois now, you can do ADHD assessments. Do you want to do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, bet. Let's send me through the rigmarole because I want to be able to tell my clients what to expect when they're going to take the test." And I got done taking the Connors, and I went, "Huh." And I brought it to our testing psychologist and I ripped off the cover sheet, and I was like, "Hey, doc, you want to take a peek at this real quick?" He's like, "Oh my, these are some very high scores, Alex. How old is this person?" 39. My goodness, they must have had a very hard life. These are some outstanding. And then he looks and he's like, "Who is this one?" "It's me." And he looked at me and said, "You didn't know you had ADHD? We all thought you knew."
Peer assessed.
Yep, right there.
I made it all the way through a graduate program. And you hang out with me when I'm not being good like this for 5 whole minutes and I'm not doing my job, girl. You know how many times I've diagnosed somebody with thyroid disorders because they came in for anxiety?
What's the connection there? Please tell.
Yeah, I would love to.
When somebody comes into my office and they are presenting with all the physical symptoms of what feels like high anxiety and panic attacks, they are not having any of the emotional connections to it. They're not having racing thoughts. They're not having intrusive thoughts. It's just like their body's having a panic attack. The thing is, I ask, does it start in your body or does it start in your head? And if it always starts in the body, because what's happening to me? Oh God, something's happened to me. And then it gets to you, 90% of the time, there's some kind of thyroid dysfunction going on there. And people can actually have temporary thyroid disorders.
I'm gonna once we publish this, I'm sending this to my best friend because she's always had pretty severe anxiety. And then she got diagnosed with a thyroid condition. And I'm going to be like, hey, was this your experience?
Well, again, also social worker, not everything that we're experiencing is psychological. Sometimes we're actually experiencing very real physical things that are being translated. I mean, the amount of times that somebody comes in here and they're like, yeah, I've seen the doctors, I've seen everybody, and they say that it's all in my head. I'm like, well, okay, so let's treat the in your head parts and see what's left over.
That's such a smart way of looking at it. And that's another reason why, like, it always irritates me when two sides of the same coin always irritate me. One, people who say that autism has no physical aspects to it whatsoever, and it is all entirely in a person's brain, which also the brain is physical.
The MTHFR gene that up your digestion, your sleep,
yes,
and your connective
and then
tissues.
Yeah, and the other people who say that like changing somebody's diet completely cures autism and things like that.
That whole thing.
Because like there is a balance between the two, because yes, there are physical aspects like the gastrointestinal issues that are either highly comorbid with autistic people or develop alongside the fact that, we have very restrictive diets at times.
Well, and yeah, exactly. My kid has ARFID. Yeah. And I've figured out like really special magical workarounds to that stuff. Like I've found ways to make sure that she gets the nutrients that she needs while still maintaining the dietary structure that is comfortable for her. Like things like enough powder. It's magic.
Yeah. So my I made one video. I made one video talking about this, about how to help autistic people who have restrictive diets. My boyfriend watched that video, and that jackass listens to me when I talk. And so he started sneaking that into my food. And I was sitting there for like weeks and I was like, wow, I feel so good. And turns out he was sneaking vegetable powder into my food to make sure that I get the proper nutrients.
Flavorless, odorless, and textureless. They're probably in your Diet Coke.
Don't give him any ideas. He's in the room, like, he will hear that and he'll start doing that. He finds these sneaky little ways to both listen to me and also try and keep me alive. Weird.
There are things that need to be done to get you healthy. We find workarounds because you are worth it. The whole change in your diet thing, there is some efficacy to that because most of the neurotransmitters that we need to, like, not want to take a toaster bath are made in the gut. If you do not have appropriate gut flora and that you're not giving yourself the proper building blocks, you're not going to produce dopamine. You're not going to produce serotonin. You're not going to produce acetylcholine. You're not going to produce norepinephrine. And with autism, you're already having a problem with oxytocin production. So because that's, I think, part of the reason why many people end up going towards the hypersexual aspect of things, because they're just like pursuing that, they're chasing that dragon because they're just looking to feel that sense of connection that they got that one time. It's like the first time you ever do opium. You're looking for that first high over again.
I do try and break through the misinformation and like let people know that, like, there is a happy medium here. There is a happy medium when it comes to autism. There is a certain level of physical symptoms that you can treat that will adjust the mental symptoms and vice versa. You know what I mean? Like, if you do try and find ways to get more nutrients into the diet, it can be very beneficial. Things like the keto diet can be beneficial for specific autistic people, especially those who are comorbid with epilepsy, because that has been known to be better for epileptic people. And when you treat that and they're having less gastrointestinal issues, then they have less sensory issues that are happening. But that doesn't mean that it's also a cure for anything. It's just a treatment.
Treatment, assistance, accommodation, help, but there is no cure. That's where kind of like a lot of the work that Dr. Amen publishes, but the whole like, I can cure ADHD by not eating high fructose corn syrup, brother.
Yeah.
No.
That's where he loses me.
Yeah, like I like a lot of the stuff that he does. I like the brain scans. I like a lot of the cool sciencey crap that he's doing. But the idea that you can cure something, no, you can make it tolerable. You can make it livable. You can make it so that it is not a massive, consistent, damaging, destructive thing in your life, but it's not going to go away. We learn to live with it. We learn to work alongside of it. This is a traveling companion for the rest of your life, period. And if you don't
Yeah.
treat it as such, if you treat it like a curse, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. Like, that's also why I tell people, like, tell your kids that they're autistic. Tell
Yeah.
them that they're
Hey,
autistic.
my kid knows she's autistic and she's cool. I mean, not always. Sometimes she's real mad about her brain.
But that's valid. But telling her that like, having her have that information early on, this is this is gonna sound counterintuitive, but one, it gives her something to be mad at that is not necessarily fully just herself. Like, you can be mad at your autism. I'm mad at my autism all the time, but that's different than being mad at yourself for a reason you can't explain.
We always break it down. We're like, okay, well, what are you experiencing? Okay, that part is part of your autism. We give it names. Like, okay, yeah, that's your heightened sensory issues. And then with our ADHD, you've got this one side of your brain that gets excited about Excel spreadsheets, and then you've got this other side of your brain that's like, we need to climb that house, and they're fighting because this side of your brain's like, but what about rules? And this side of your brain's like, but what about endorphins and dopamine and doing crazy shit? And they fight all the time. And so we sit down and we were like, okay, so let's look at like what are some good solutions when you feel those impulses, when you feel those urges. What are acceptable risk-taking behaviors? What are things that feel dangerous and feel risky but are in fact quite safe? And so we figure shit out.
Yeah, and you can do it in age-appropriate ways, right? Like, you explain it to kids at their comprehension level, and they get more information as they get older. And I think that's the thing, is people will be fixated on, well, when's the right time to tell them? Like, what age do we tell them? And we're like, whenever they should know.
You can tell kids things from a pretty early age. It's just finding the right words for that age. As an SA and DV counselor, I have talks with how to have that talk with kids. There are appropriate ways to have that talk with a 3-year-old. It's just about finding the language that is appropriate.
I taught bodily autonomy to preschoolers. It's just we use different methods. We sing a song about it.
Then there's also books like Different Not Less by Chloe Hayden. That one was very good.
Speaking of books, what other autism books do you like? So we mentioned Different Not Less by Chloe Hayden. That's a good one. And that was written for kids, teenagers, about autism.
Yeah. I like, well, it depends on what you're trying to do. Because, like, if you're trying to destigmatize yourself, Unmasking Autism by Devin Price is pretty good.
He has some other things going on in his life that may bother people.
Devin's kind of ragey. No, I know.
Who is Devin?
As a book, it was helpful. Dr. Devin Price.
They wrote Unmasking Autism.
Yes, okay. Unmasking Autism, the book. So that one I found that one helpful. I like the amount of research that's cited.
That's a good one. There's actually a book that's just called Is This Autism? And it comes with a companion guide for diagnosing. I have the workbook right here, and it's by Donna Henderson. It's really good. And this is right now I'm looking at the companion guide for diagnosing. It's meant as a book for diagnosis, but it really goes into in-depth about what autism really is and like all the little science. I really like it a lot. It also, like, when I have a client that's kind of on the fence, so I'm like, I think you're autistic. And they're like, I don't know, boss. I'll loan them a copy of that book. And then they come back like a week later, like, that's everything. Wow. Okay, cool. Yeah. You're good at your job.
That was called
Is This Autism?
Is This Autism?
Yep. Then there's also the new one, The Self-Care for Autistic People.
I saw that book in Barnes & Noble and I almost grabbed it and I did not.
It is worth owning. It is probably one of the most well-written books on ways to help diffuse and engage in care. And it's also written by a psychologist who has ADHD.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Okay, which one is this?
Self-Care for Autistic People.
Who wrote that one? Because that sounds familiar.
It's Dr. Megan Anna Neff.
Dr. Neff, yes. That's on my list of to be read because Dr. Neff has some infographics that were very helpful.
First of all, it's only that thick.
It's doable.
It's the size of my hand.
That is very doable, yeah. Okay.
I love the fact that she wrote it in a very non-threatening, very direct, very approachable way. You don't have to be a PsyD to understand this, which is a problem with a lot of the books out there. But like, here we go. I just flipped to one page. Tune into your body's signals with a body scan. Body scans are one of the things I teach all the time. And it gives...
Body scans are so hard for...
No, but they're not.
For me.
Well, sure, because you haven't been taught. You never had a Yoda.
Scans are tricky for me because I get distracted. I can do it as part of like a relaxation exercise, like at night, especially if it's a guided one. So I'm not having to be in charge.
I just get so anxious thinking about all the things that they want me to focus on. And I'm like, how does one do that? Like, I just get too in my head to get out of my head.
That's the thing, is you need somebody that actually understands how your brain works.
Listen, I'll try it one more time.
If I could get you here in my office 1 hour, by the end of that hour, you would be a body scan beast, because I wouldn't just have you do mindfulness. We'd probably start with some ART to get your anxiety down.
ART is one of my big takeaways from this discussion on like how helpful that is for
I've
people.
never tried ART, but it's something to bring up with my therapist, because she's always willing to look for new treatment methods. Yeah, she's always willing to learn a new technique. I'm pretty sure she was looking into it, because like she literally just did just finished all of the EMDR stuff, and she has so many autistic clients, so she's always like, I need different treatments under my tool belts for them.
I have been doing EMDR for 12 years. I am well known in this area for being like one of the best trauma therapists in the Quad City area. After I learned ART, I genuinely felt like I'd wasted the last 12 years of my life.
What aspects of ART are the most helpful for people, specifically like autistic folks, do you think?
There are so many workarounds. Like with EMDR, we encourage visualization always. But what if you have aphantasia?
For people who have never experienced EMDR, could we walk through what that is so that we can explain the differences?
EMDR stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing, designed by Dr. Francine Shapiro in the mid-'80s and popularized in the '90s. EMDR utilizes the acts of guided visualization, bringing up physical sensations to process out the emotional charge associated with a negative life experience, i.e. a trauma. Essentially, it desensitizes the person to the experience via the use of progressive visualizations and bilateral stimulation, which activates the body and the mind as one.
Can we put that into bimbo terms? Because some of us,
it's like
some of us are all beauty and
to
no
me like
brain.
I'm 5.
Okay. Your body holds on to trauma because it doesn't know what it's allowed to throw away and what it's allowed to keep. And the brain's first job is to protect the meat suit, period. So it will store energetic charges associated with negative experiences as a way to protect the body. This affects the development of neural pathways in the brain. The roads in your brain have big roadblocks in them because of this. And then it gets rerouted to a trauma pathway. So what would be a normal pathway is going and going and going, then it hits the trauma filter and it gets rerouted down a trauma pathway, because your brain's first job is to protect the body. It doesn't know what is a physical danger and what is an emotional danger. Hence my tattoo, There Is No Tiger. The tiger, the tall grass theory. Your brain does not know the difference between wind moving the grass and a tiger walking through it.
That explains how people can get triggered by things that aren't actually what happened with their traumatic incident.
Like perhaps your abuser as a child wore Old Spice cologne. Now, every time you smell Old Spice cologne, even if it's on somebody that is genuinely just a wonderful human being and that you love and trust, and you don't know why you're suddenly reactive to that person, because olfactory senses are our oldest sense, actually.
Oh my God.
We can smell before we can do anything. Babies can smell their mother's milk the instant they come out. If you place a newborn baby on the mother's belly, it will crawl up to find the breast milk because it can smell it. It automatically knows that's where food lives. So our 5 senses play into that, as well as emotions. I mean, Porges kind of gets into this a lot with the polyvagal theory as well, where he talks about like different facial things. Evolutionarily speaking, we are reactive to certain kinds of faces, positive and negative and neutral. With EMDR, basically we are draining the battery, the emotional battery associated with something, so that the neural pathway can heal through the use of kind of like highly controlled exposure work and the use of bilateral stimulation, which is just a fancy word for we activate both sides of your body and both sides of your brain, either through eye movement or vibration. We have these little buzzies called buzzies or tappers, and they vibrate back and forth. Or we will even like tap on the person's knees, or if a client is needing to do self-soothing, we'll encourage the butterfly tapping.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. With ART, we still use the bilateral stimulation. In fact, we use the eye movement primarily, but instead of trying to access a memory, all we are trying to do is get the brain activated.
Okay.
And so instead of you going through the entire day of your 12th birthday where you wet your pants and now you've developed a weird intense phobia of ever having a full bladder, instead we would just say, okay, instead of you going through like the way you started your day and the way it went, and then with the incident that happened, and then the shame and doubt and feelings that you felt afterwards, we might just say, okay, give me a snapshot, a quick image of you wetting your pants when you were 12 years old. And that's it. And then we would go after the physical sensations and any following images. We wouldn't go with any negative cognitions. It's just activating that, going after the subconscious brain, and then going after the hindbrain as well, the reactive, your reptile brain.
Okay, so instead of doing a deep dive into this traumatic moment, we're just doing a small, like you said, a snapshot of it and moving from there.
We can still diffuse it. And this is great because I have clients that have aphantasia. I have people that have alexithymia.
Aphantasia and alexithymia, could you define those for folks who might be listening and not?
Aphantasia, your brain can't see pictures inside your head. And then alexithymia, basically your brain and your body do not communicate as far as the emotions and physical sensations. Alexithymia can present in a bunch of different ways, not understanding the emotion that you're experiencing based on the physical sensations that you're having. Alexithymia can also expand into a profound lack of interoception. And interoception is your body's ability to notice physical sensations that are occurring.
See, I struggle with a certain level of both of those. So like when I've done EMDR for some memories that were traumatic, it was effective. But then other ones, it just didn't work at all. Like at all.
And that could also be because during those events you were actually dissociating, and where you felt like they weren't working, you were actually processing the dissociative episode where you were like, I don't feel anything. Oh, okay. Go with that. Go with nothing.
Maybe. I don't know.
In my personal experience, because I've seen a few neurodivergent people. Oftentimes,
Mr. I'm good at my job.
When we go to the void place, it's usually because we're actually processing the somatic memory of a dissociative episode.
So when you say that, what do you mean? Like we're processing the dissociative episode? Because like the whole point of EMDR in and of itself, to my understanding, as a person who is not trained in this but who has gone through it, the whole purpose is to basically like relive the traumatic event in a safe space. So are you saying that like we're reliving
if you dissociated during the traumatic event, that's part of the traumatic event.
Okay. So you're saying that
string, not pieces of string.
So you're saying that sometimes when experiencing EMDR, instead of reliving the trauma, you're reliving the dissociation as a response to the trauma.
Correct.
Okay. So how does ART circumvent that, or does it?
With magic.
Magic.
I use mystical sorcery because I'm also a wizard. Expect that with ART, there's a better understanding that people dissociate during traumatic events. So we'll actually go when they're like, I'm not feeling anything. Okay, go with nothing. When do you experience nothing? Notice that. No, go with the nothing and then see what happens after the nothing.
What if it's just more nothing?
Then we reset. We bring it back around.
Okay, so it might take several times. Okay.
But as a whole, it's like it's more effective and there's less re-traumatization.
Yeah, it has a much less negative impact on the client because we're just doing snapshots, not re-exposure. So the physical depletion of resources is greatly reduced. I'm not saying that people aren't going to be wiped out, but typically after a really good EMDR session, most of my clients go home, they pass out for 4 hours, they wake up obscenely hungry, and then they come back, they're like, that was weird, Alex, what happened to me? And they'll usually have nightmares. With ART, we can usually process out a lot more in a lot shorter amount of time. Like I can get the same results in 1 to 3 sessions of ART that would take me 30 sessions of EMDR. And yeah, oh yeah, there's a reason that I'm excited about this because I am getting progress. The crazy thing is because the immediate impact on people is so like minimal, they almost feel like it didn't work because they feel like they didn't get hit by a bunch of hammers.
Right, because EMDR, like, it's a very powerful therapy, but it makes you feel like you got hit by a bus. Yeah.
I've never had that experience with EMDR. Everyone else has always told me that would be the experience.
Interesting.
But I appreciate the level of like approaching the disassociative aspect of it because in my experience, as a domestic violence and sexual assault counselor, I do often work with autistic people and we talk about trauma responses. And in my experience with neurodivergent clients, one of the most common trauma responses is disassociation and in particular a freeze response, which in and of itself, it's not quite dissociation, but it is very similar.
Yeah, it's almost like paralysis.
Exactly. It's like your body is just staying very still and very quiet until the danger passes, because that's, it's like you said before, brain's first instinct and only job is to protect meat suit. And so like I appreciate any sort of therapy that is going to address that for autistic people, because one of the things that we talk about that I don't think we talk about enough within the autism community is that there's a difference between meltdowns and shutdowns. And autistic people, when experiencing shutdowns, often have complete dissociative episodes where we are just like, we're here, but we're not here. We're gone. There's no response. So one of the things that I've noticed as a discussion on autism TikTok right now is that there is this huge push that I personally don't agree with to remove terms like level 1, level 2, and level 3 autism from the DSM, because a lot of particularly lower support needs autistic people tend to believe that this means that support needs, which is what the levels are supposed to reflect, the level of support that each individual autistic person needs. A lot of lower support needs autistics tend to feel as though that is not does not account for the flexibility of support needs and how they can change over time. What are your thoughts on that as somebody who uses the DSM for their career?
Well, I mean, the DSM-5 was the first one where they actually got rid of the Asperger's diagnosis because we don't honor the Nazis who experimented on people to see exactly how useless or useful they could be. And then it got kind of smushed all in there. So really, I mean, we're only in the first revision since that's happened.
Okay.
But there are very clear definers of autism 1, autism 2, autism 3. And when we are diagnosing, we'll diagnose as autism 1, autism 2, autism 3. But yes, I mean, obviously people's support needs are going to fluctuate throughout their life, whether they're autistic or anything.
Oh, that's
period.
You know what? That's something I didn't think about. Yeah, that's true.
Well, because we think about it as like, well, I'm autistic and you're not. Yeah, you know what? I got my leg crushed in 22 and I had to walk with a cane. My office staff had to provide specific accommodations for me because I couldn't walk up front to get my clients as often because it was exhausting and incredibly painful, and sometimes it would make me throw up because of the discomfort. We're talking about that, like there is that tendency, especially when we're talking about it in the autistic community, of a very narrowed view. We all need different accommodations at different kinds of at times of our life. Yes, I mean the DSM does kind of address that. It mentions that like it's a spectrum. It fluctuates. Even if you are straight up spectrum 1, depending on what's going on in your lifetime at different points of your life, yeah, you're going to require more support. You're going to require less support. My daughter's 15 right now. She needs a lot of support. We have her in one of the alternative schools that uses smaller classroom sizes. They have highly trained counselors that they have multiple counselors. All 4 grades, there are only 200 students total.
Wow.
50
that
kids.
Would be a phenomenal program.
50 kids per grade, and each grade, their passing times are different. So they're not getting mixed with the upperclassmen or the lowerclassmen. So the stimulation levels are much, much lower. Those are the accommodations that she needs right now. Now, my wife, the accommodations that she usually needs are from me. And most of those accommodations are just comfort and assistance, and every now and then a little bit of redirection, and also kind of like catching her when I can tell that she's not doing okay. Like when she goes flat, that's when I usually know that she's got like no juice left, but she's still trying to just little engine that could up the rest of the hill. We all need different accommodations at different times of our life. Instead of looking at this as autistics need this and autistics need that, we need to look at like, what do humans need? Because every person with autism is different. Every person with ADHD is different. Every person with bipolar is different. Every person with PTSD is different. Every person is different. And if we don't honor that, and it continues to be this us against them, that's what divides us instead of unifies us, period.
I love that. And, one of the things that I found in my experience as an autistic person is definitely that when I'm in a space that I know I could receive the support without judgment, I feel safer acknowledging when I need the support. Like I'm in a theater troupe, which is the first ever in Los Angeles to have all autistic performers. It's called Epic Players, and it's amazing. And we have people of across the spectrum needs. Like one of the members of our group is Abby from Love on the Spectrum, who obviously does have significantly higher support needs than I do. I don't know what her autism level is, and it's not up to me to speculate. But like being around community with people who also have higher support needs makes me feel better, actually, weirdly enough, about acknowledging when I do need support. Like I spend so much time unmasking in that program and like not worrying about like, okay, I don't need to perform neurotypicality. I can just be autistic and I don't have to worry about it.
Well, and that's one of the big things that Neff talks about in her book is like giving
Mhm.
yourself places and spaces to unmask
Mhm.
and being your full on autistic self. I mean, that's
Yeah.
super important. And that's one of the things I really try to like make an avenue for here in my space, in my office. Like one of the first things
Mhm.
I'll tell any of my kiddos that are any of my adults and any of my clients that are neurodivergent at all is there's a reason that I have so much crap all over the walls in my office. It's because it gives you focal points that aren't me, because I know that sometimes eye contact is hard. And
Yes.
sometimes, I mean, if you want to make eye contact with me, I get that. That's okay. But here's the thing. I know you're listening because you're responding.
Yeah. If more people could understand that, thank you.
That's something that I have had to explain to people over and over again is that I think especially when you are a content creator and you're, we're making videos, people are only seeing this tiny little bit of our lives. And it's what we have curated, what we want you to see. And so I have to constantly explain that, like, you're not seeing me at my worst. You're not seeing me during my struggles. You're seeing me in where I'm looking at a little tiny box. I don't have to make eye contact. I'm looking at a machine. Like, I'm doing great right now because I'm staring at both of y'all through a computer.
Yeah, one of the things I've been really working on in my videos is allowing a little bit of ADHD vulnerability. Like when I screw up, I don't edit it out.
I wish I could be that brave.
Well, I also don't get paid to do this. I have never
Yes.
accepted money for any of my social media stuff, and I doubt that I ever will because I never want my content I never want to be driven by popularity or trends to provide quality information.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the big difference is like you are a therapist. That is your job.
Right. This is what I do.
Content creation is my job and Ricky's job. So
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So you two are held to a very different set of standards. Also, as a therapist, it's important for clients to know that I'm a person too and that I'm human too. Like if my client is having a beautiful moment, I got no problem letting a couple of tears fall out of my face. I'm not gonna restrict those, and I'll tell them that I'm crying because I'm proud of them. Or like when they tell me something incredibly horrible, I'll cry with them. I'm like, yeah, that sucked. Come here. Do you like? Do we just need to like sit on the floor together? What do you need right now? Because that's the thing is I'm a toolbox. I work for you. My job is to do whatever it is that you need. Not always necessarily what you want, but we talk about what you need. Because obviously nobody actually wants to dive into their trauma, but we know that it's necessary. We know that it's needful. We know
Yeah.
that it's better to get through it than to get past it. And there's a big difference.
I think that therapy is helpful for so many people. Like I encourage everybody to go to therapy and to get counseling. I try to tell people who find out like, oh, I've gone to couples counseling and it's like, oh, were you going through big problems? I'm like, it's
No.
better to like go before. That's how we don't get to the explosive big
Right.
problems.
Yeah. And that's actually why I stopped doing couples counseling, because 90% of the time when people present for couples counseling, one person's already
Right.
checked out and done.
Yeah.
And the other person's clueless. And it's awful to sit here on my side and go, buddy,
Right.
they-
And so
they're out. They're just doing this so they can say, well, we tried everything, which is shallow and petty and horrible, but also very human. I will do couples therapy periodically with people if they're just hitting a speed bump and they realize they're hitting a speed bump, or maybe they just want to develop, or they recognize they're shit at communication, because we're humans and we are. So we come in and we develop better communication skills. One of my favorite population to work with is the partners of neurodivergence that come in, not because they want to bitch and complain and change their partner, but because they want to understand what's going on with their partner so they can figure out ways to accommodate their partner and also change their own worldview, because they keep looking at this like, well, but why can't you just do it? And I'll explain. They probably can, but not right now. Yeah. But circling back around to the DSM,
Yes.
There does need to be those gradients there, because without those gradients, services are not provided.
That's what I've been trying to explain to people with that, and it's very frustrating.
If we don't have the word disability to bully governments and agencies into accommodating, into providing accommodation, into providing acceptance, then there's no place for because all they want are good cogs. And that I actually made a video about that the other day, that it has to be there. We have to have that word disability in there, because that is what protects us. Is it accurate? I don't think so. I think of it as a different neurotype, but until this world is actually set up to accommodate all of us, which it never will be, there has to be something there to ensure that those who need the extra get it. I mean, as somebody who advocates for my clients in the workplace, as somebody who advocates for my clients in the school system, I will tell you that very little is actually accomplished, even after citing ADA specifications, until legal action.
APs are not followed
Nope.
until there's legal action taken.
My name is a swear word in several different school districts, and honestly, that's a badge of honor. Like, if
I
they
love
see
that
my
you
name
see
on
that
a,
as a badge of honor.
hell yes, if they see my name on a letterhead, they're like, just give the kid whatever he wants. It's Hogg. God. Like,
I love
literally,
that.
there's a smaller school district, and every principal there knows exactly who I am, because I will come to their school and I will eat their soul.
Yeah, but like people
Oh,
need that.
right.
We
Well,
need
yeah,
that.
especially somebody who's already terrified of confrontation, and somebody who doesn't know what the law is. And I do, upside down and sideways. I can cite all like 190 whatever bits of the ADA per different disability, because I have to be able to do that. I have to be able to cite these things on the fly in order to be able to ensure that my kid gets to wear loops or noise canceling headphones, or be able to take a walk if they need to, or be able to just go and sit in the nurse's office for 15 minutes because they're not doing okay.
You know, with people like the person that I mentioned before, the professor who has like a PhD and everything, saying that he doesn't believe that these accommodations are really needed by all of these people. Like, we need people who are not afraid to be the bully, because so many people have that fond response to trauma of like, okay, well, if you don't think I need these accommodations, I'm too traumatized to fight for myself, so I'll just suffer instead. Like, we need
Oh, yeah.
somebody who's like not afraid to be Batman.
And again, I think it goes back to the idea that like language is important, and it's not always, I don't like that word. Like, that gives me like bad vibes.
Oh my
It's
God,
like
yes.
so many medical and technical terms are useful, and they're neutral. There's a lot of moral neutrality going on, and unfortunately, then we get folks who just go off on TikTok being like, I don't like this one word, but unless there is like a crazy problematic history and like we know all these things, but with words like disability, that's a neutral term. Like, that's a technical term.
And yet so many people, even in the autism community, are trying to reject the term disability, which just, that honestly does not make sense to me as an autistic
That's the
person.
ASB supremacy.
It
Yeah.
really is. Aspie supremacy is back, and it is like got a whole new outfit.
And it sucks because, cool, man, I'm really glad that you're like kicking ass and taking names and you got your shit figured out, and you've got all these supports and you've got all these tools and you've got your shit figured out. But guess what, man? You're in the minority, and there are so
And
many
that's
people.
what they don't understand.
Well, and of course, because it's that first person viewpoint.
Which it like, that is understandably difficult for autistic people. We do very much struggle to put ourselves in other people's shoes, even if it is other
For sure.
autistic people.
And that's part of it. Is that's why we have to like gently psychoeducate, not attack, not assault, but go, yeah, no, man, I totally get that. But here's the thing: is for every one person that's got their shit figured out, there are 20 others dangling down here, just trying to suck enough air so they don't sink.
Literally. I am so cognitively aware at all times exactly how disabled I am by my autism in comparison to other people. I am hyper aware of my autism and the way that it makes me different in every single social interaction. There is not a single second that I'm like, I'm not a disabled person anymore. Like, I used to deny it a lot, but not anymore. I'm just like hyper aware of it all the time. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely a disabled person. And so, like, sometimes it just baffles me that other people are able to not live that way. And I'm honestly jealous. I'm honestly jealous because sometimes I would like to turn it off and not be aware of the fact that I am disabled. But
For sure. I would love if I could just flip my hyperfocus on and off whenever I felt like it. I would love to be able to just like not have executive dysfunction. I would like to not be paralyzed by a sink full of dishes. Freaking thank you. I would like to not want to destroy my office when I have to do filing. I would like to, like,
I would
and
love
it's
for
so
showers to not be physically, mentally, emotionally exhausting.
For me, brushing my teeth. I would love brushing my teeth not to be physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted.
and those are things that ART can actually help with. Yeah, I'm actually with a couple of my clients who are wonderful sports. They've been letting me experiment on them.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I'm like, okay, I got an idea. They're like, yeah, Magic Man, hit my brain, do it. They're so fun, and there's like they're doing very well. But I'm like, okay, I have a thought about this. What if this is just a trauma response? What if everything is just a trauma response? Everything is a trauma response. Because you were made to brush your teeth, because you're made to shower. The negative association began in there with the PDA, because PDA, I'm convinced, is really just a trauma response in and of itself. There are parents out there that be like, no, my 2-year-old has PDA. Your 2-year-old's 2. Shut up. Have you been around many 2-year-olds? They're assholes. Like, I loved 2. My kid was amazing at 2, but she was also hard. That kid gaslit me every 5 seconds. Daddy, will you peel me a banana? Sure, baby girl, here you go. You peeled this. Do I smell toast? Having a stroke? Is that like all 2-year-olds have PDA. I don't care. I don't care if you got the best 2-year-old in the whole wide world. I mean, Holberg talks about it. Erickson talks about it. That persistent drive for autonomy, it is always there. It doesn't matter if you're neurodivergent or neurotypical. That PDA aspect is there. Yes, some of us grow out of it. Some of us, it becomes its own trigger. So we address the PDA and the negative vibes associated with something, and then we work on creating positive association with the thing that we're avoidant on, and suddenly things suck a whole lot less.
That is definitely something that we should. I'm definitely going to consider that. I do believe we are running out of time. However, for
Yeah.
this session, this has been like really one of the most productive like podcast sessions I think we've had in like yet.
Just personally, the
Just
information that
personally,
I have
yeah.
learned from you has been like, so
Like I'm
thank you.
absolutely taking
That's just what I do.
I'm taking these to my therapy, and maybe like that nut's gonna crack or shatter. I don't know. We'll find out. If you don't see me for 6 months, it's because the nut shattered.
If people want to hear more ramblings from you, where can they find you?
I'm on TikTok. If you look up Alex Hogg, Hogg, you find me there. I am slowly but surely getting all of my old videos up on YouTube.
We will be sure to link your YouTube to the description. This was such a great session. You can find me at Ribera Bonbon on all platforms.
And you can find me at Brains and Spoons everywhere as well.
So thank you so much for joining us once again for Asking Autistics podcast. Please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you made it this far, comment a watermelon emoji. Because watermelon is nice. We like watermelon. And we want to know how many of you guys are waiting to listen to our end credit scenes.
And don't forget to press all the buttons, all of them.
Because buttons are fun.